It really was the sound of the crowd on the radio when a home run was hit or a goal was scored by the Blackhawks, and it was that sound of joy.
Welcome to Game Recognizes Game. Today we sit down with the legendary sports broadcaster Chris Fowler from ESPN. Just imagine having a 40-year career doing something you love that started as a little kid. He received the gift and love and passion for sports from his grandmother. And now nearly 4 decades later, he has called some of the greatest sporting events in history, from the College Football National Championship to the Rose Bowl to Wimbledon to the US Open tennis. The list goes on and on. We discuss his preparation, what it takes to stay on top for those many years. But we also talk about that he gets nervous before every sporting event. Why? It's not fear, but it's knowing he has a sacred responsibility to just get it right. We also talk about the changing college sports landscape, especially in college football, and the overarching problems we are dealing with NIL. A special sit down today. Let's get inspired. Game recognizes Chris Fowler.
You work your ass off, you choose a path rooted in passion, real great joy. And then you keep working and you reach the top of your game, whatever game that is. And you stay there 10 years, 20, maybe even 30. But can you picture yourself being there for almost 40 years? That's exactly what our next guest has done. The legendary, one of the greatest of all time, yes, one of the GOATs, Mr. Chris Fowler. He is one of those voices that you simply can never forget. He has called some of the most important events, games on TV and on sports worldwide. From game day, Saturday night football on ABC, to the epic finals of Wimbledon, the US Open. You name it, he has done it. His voice is the soundtrack of so many of our sports fanatics' lives. And now, he's the soundtrack of our kids' lives on Xbox and video games. It is my great honor to introduce my friend on Game Recognizes Game, Chris Fowler. Thanks, Chris, man. Good to see you, bud. Marty.
Yes, sir.
Awesome to see you. You know, I don't take compliments well. That was exceedingly generous and kind of you.
I kind of warned you.
I know.
I kind of warned you.
It is amazing for me.
You got to pinch yourself, right?
I mean, you never start out doing something thinking, how many years or decades will I do this? What will it feel like to be in the business that long? Because you have a very short-term thought process. I did anyway. It was just one job to the next gig, and here we are. Yeah, 38 years at one company, not just in the business, but at ESPN, which was about 7 years old when I joined it, looking about 11 years old out of college, and here we go.
I've seen some of that footage. The suits might have been a little...
You have. No, please don't show that.
The suits might have been a little big. I remember those.
Forget the suits. I was wearing T-shirts doing a high school sports show and getting it mistaken for high school kids. Put him in the hallway.
Oh,
I got asked for a hall pass. I was like, no, I'm a college graduate. We're here to do it. Oh, yeah, sure, kid.
I'm the reporter?
Yeah, they didn't believe it.
That's fantastic. You know, I said something that I know is important to you, is you pick a path rooted in passion and joy. And I know there's a story about your grandmother and that transistor radio and listening to the Cubbies, you know, and the joy, not only that she had, right, but that crowd, right?
Yeah.
And I know that's that first seed. And we talk a lot about this on the show, about the seeds of greatness, right?
Yeah.
And then how we nurture, cultivate, right? And develop those seeds. But talk about that 10-year-old kid, you know?
Yeah, I connect with people who have a passion for their grandparents. I think the love of a grandparent is as precious as anything in the world. My grandmother was a huge sports fan.
My grandmother raised me. I get it.
I mean, my parents knew nothing about sports. They came from the arts. Sports were not on in our house.
but they were on at my grandparents' house. So we got dropped off there often on weekends. My parents would park us over there, and we were happy to go. And the TV was on, and there was a big bowl of M&Ms. And I remember watching my very first NFL games at their house, at the early Super Bowls. But the Cubs games were a special passion for my grandmother. She wasn't from Illinois, but we lived in the Chicago area. My parents took a job there, and so I moved there as a kid, and so they followed us to Illinois, and the Cubs were on the radio, and she was in the backyard of her apartment building in a folding chair with a scorebook, scoring every Cubs game in the old-fashioned with a pencil. Off a radio.
Wow.
And, you get roped into that, and I think the radio broadcasts of the Cubs, the Blackhawks, which I became a huge hockey fan from being a kid listening to the Blackhawks. So you have your heart broken. You can relate, maybe. You pick teams that are not going to deliver championships. Not early on, anyway. You have to wait a long time.
Sorry about that. Come on now.
Well, Jennifer's a Jets fan, so I know what that's about. But I'm watching my grandmother care so much about this, and it really was the sound of the crowd on the radio when a home run was hit or a goal was scored by the Blackhawks, and it was that sound of joy. It was that sound of a lot of people together, joyful, being so happy for the same reason at the same moment. Yeah. It's hard to find in this world. Yeah. It really is. And it's hard to find on a regular basis. So sports delivered that. And I thought, wow, what would that be like to be a part of something, describing a game to other people, just like the kid that I was, and being a part of a joyful moment. And I still, when I watch a game, I'll watch the replays, I'll watch the crowd behind the court in basketball, or I'll watch, it's easier in an indoor sport like hockey or basketball. Sure. Just watch the crowd, watch them react when a goal is scored. Like who's got the hands up
tennis,
first.
Right? I can only imagine.
Yeah, tennis. Just to watch the crowd reaction. And it's obviously the spectrum of emotions too. A lot of people are pissed off, devastated, crushed. Their self-esteem has been stepped on because their team didn't win. It's all of that. But
that's my life.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You know what? There wouldn't be the joy if there wasn't the pain, 100%. Right?
God, I could use some joy.
I
call that, what you're describing, I call that the heartbeat, man, because it's the collective heartbeat. And that was a seed in you, and that, you're right, that collective moment. For me, the greatest moment I ever been a witness of was in '94 when the Rangers won the Stanley Cup. I'm not even a huge hockey fan, but I had the blessing of being there. I can close my eyes and hear that roar. I thought Madison Square Garden was going to just come down, right?
I was there, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. You just gave me goosebumps, taking me back to that.
Yeah.
They lost Game 5. Building was cocky. 3-1 up. They're going to win the cup right here.
Of course, right
lose.
there.
Go to Vancouver. Lose. Come back to Game 7. What was that like in Game 7? I still think about that. That's one of the epic events in New York sports history, because the Rangers had been 54 years without winning the cup. That's those moments, man.
No question. I mean, and I remember closing my eyes and that roar. All right, we go to high school now, right? Are you writing for the school newspaper? Are you covering the high school games at your own school?
My first job on a mic was announcing the high school hockey games at the municipal rink when my younger brother Drew played on the high school team, and he scored goals, and I got to announce him scoring goals.
That's cool.
He just turned 60, and we are sharing that memory. I mean, that's pretty cool. The odds of that, making a career in this, where your very first opportunity to be on a mic in public was calling high school hockey games. Your brother was scoring goals, and that was my alma mater that he played for. So that was very, very cool. And then I just went to college and did campus radio, DJ I love music as much as sports almost.
Yeah, 100%.
So I did like the DJ shift, the little sports talk show. I just grabbed every chance. I did write for the school newspaper. I wrote PR, press releases, sports information, kept stats for the worst football program in the world. Colorado Buffaloes were the worst.
At the time.
They won 7 games my last 3 years combined. And
They're more relevant right now, by the way.
A lot more relevant. It's more fun. More fun to do stats for the team now. But an IBM Selectric typewriter in the pre-computer era, giving up your Saturday nights in Boulder, Colorado, using the whiteout to correct it. And you're doing Colorado's stats in the left column. Shitty. Can I say that in this podcast?
100%.
The visitors on the right, huge numbers. And it was like that week after week. And your girlfriend's, wait, what? You were doing what on Boulder on a Saturday night? I mean, so
yeah,
but I just
felt compelled
from an early age, and we can get into it if you want, but I was very self-sufficient. And there were things happened in my life that made me very self-sufficient. And so I didn't take a dime from my mom or anybody else after high school. So I was working jobs. It wasn't like, hey, this will be fun to get some experience. I needed money.
Yeah.
I needed money to get through college that way. And between that and some little scholarships, I was self-sufficient. So I was proud of that, but nobody really understood why at a party school, I was working all these jobs, going down to Denver in a weekend to take box scores of high school basketball games on the phone and type them in and send them off. I mean, that was as basic as it gets.
Right,
Yeah.
and also such a young man and getting paid to do something you love.
Yeah, true.
It was a necessity. You needed the work and you needed the money.
Well, I had one landscaping job in college.
Right.
Between that and working at a go-kart track in Boulder in the summer between years of school, I said that these kind of real-world jobs, they kind of suck. I want to go back and do media jobs.
Which, by the way, also really, really hard. And the average fan would never know how hard it really is. So how did your interview go at ESPN? Because they were almost like a startup. Yeah, they had a few years under the belt, but they were small, man.
I hadn't thought about that. First of all, you get a stack of tapes at ESPN, and even at 7 years old, and this is a high school sports show. So I thought maybe they were calling me.
Scholastic Sports America.
Let's go do some Sports Center. Oh, no. Because I was a huge fan of the network. If you're a sports fan already, even in '86, you're watching it. And they brought me in to do this high school sports show. And I had gotten my tape there because I worked in Denver at a top 20 market, an NBC network-owned station there, Channel 4, as an intern, a producer, and later on camera. So I had done 1 year of on-camera work right out of school, and I find myself sitting at ESPN for a job interview. And thankfully, they hired me. Well, I think what impressed them was that I told them that after the job interview, I was going to take a Metro North train into the city to see some friends. And the guy was very impressed that I was saving money by taking a cheap train as opposed to a car service. That impressed. You'll fit in well here, young man, because it was the budget was tight. I mean, I
can only imagine.
I got
First
paid.
of all, you're flying to
I got
New
paid
York,
north of
Connecticut.
$50,000, but not much to be working basically 50 weeks a year. On this show, we traveled about 40 weeks because we traveled every week of the high school calendar, right? So September to May, we're on the road, multiple stops each week, like producing these pieces, and it was great training ground, proving ground for it because you learn things like writing and working with a camera operator and an editor. I sat in the room and edited, so it was awesome experience in that way, and did it for 2 years, and that got it started.
I mean, as a fan, that's, just after high school for me, I just loved that show. I mean, because there were high school players and men and women, and you highlighted them, and it was inspirational because they really were like my peers, and my boys in high school and my fellow teammates in high school.
I don't know why the show's not still around. I mean, I felt like there's still a place for it. I mean, Emmett Smith was the first football player we ever profiled. That's a pretty good start.
That's a pretty good
Hall
start.
of Famer that I've obviously befriended and kept in touch with. Alonzo Mourning, other guys. Lance Armstrong is still a close friend of mine because I got to know him.
Wow.
Janet Evans, the Olympic
school.
swimmer. Yeah, and a lot of these athletes that you see in the formative stages, and great knows great. I mean, you understood why they were destined because you could see in them something special. And there were many athletes who were doing archery or crew or all kinds of sports like that. And I tend to remember the ones that went on to greatness, but it was so impressive to be in front of, because they felt like my peers.
Yeah.
I wasn't that far out of high school.
That's right.
And I was so impressed by the drive and the skill and the poise that a lot of these kids had. It was I learned a lot from them in that experience, as well as learning on the job.
Yeah, and I'm guessing when you saw that greatness at such a young age, you probably took a mental note,
Yeah.
man. Emmett Smith, I can only imagine what he looked like running.
Emmett Smith was like, everybody knew he was going to be good, but maybe not Hall of Fame good, right? Because
Sure.
a lot of five-star recruits don't end up in Canton.
Yeah. Now, after decades of seeing great ones, the greatness, what do you think were those qualities that you saw in Emmett, you saw in Lance? What stood out? Was it, because I think it's a relentlessness to their craft, whatever that craft is, right? And no rearview mirror. I mean, what do you think?
Drive and hunger. It's got to come from somewhere. It's almost a cliche in sports that it comes from being told you're not good enough, you're not this, you're from the wrong side of the tracks. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, that's what drives people. But I think that it's one thing to be hungry, you have to apply consistency. And you said relentless, that's a good word, just relentlessness, because that implies that you're going to have setbacks. You're going to have obstacles, and yet you don't let that get in your way. You push through that, or you jump over them, or you knock them down. And I think that's what the common thread is for these people. And you have the most talented people, who are also the hardest working people, and also have a sense of responsibility to those around them. Then you have the all-time greats. And you miss any of those things, and I think you don't have someone.
You have good.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
have good, and you can do very well and have a great career at good.
Yeah,
but
talent alone can get you this far, but I think that drive and that resilience too. I mean, relentless, resilience, they're kind of connected, but resilience implies that you're going to have all sorts of unforeseen things come up, and how do you bounce back? How do you respond to it? And it really is what life is, and I love the fact that sports reflects that and is a microcosm of the greater struggles that we have in life.
Yeah, you talk about relentlessness, and you had a lot of that, but it might have been just disguised with passion and joy of the game, all sports and sports media. And as your career blossomed at ESPN, you start Game Day.
Yeah.
And you essentially put the train in gear, and the train just took off, man. I mean, for decades, my Saturday mornings were started with a cup of coffee and you. Thank you very much.
Well,
and there was a relentlessness to that show, and to get it right, and it was just that the pursuit of a perfection was amazing to see.
Yeah, that's well put. I'm not a perfectionist. I don't believe in perfectionism, because I think it's a path to unhappiness, because none of us are going to be perfect. But I do believe in setting incredibly high standards for yourself and then trying to meet them. And certainly, especially when you're young, being very disappointed in yourself if you don't. And so holding yourself to that, and being relentless about the job you do, and being detail oriented, and trying just to get it right the first time. And if you don't, the second time. I talk to young people all the time, and if you don't take responsibility for being reliable, for sweating the details, to me, you have no shot. You have no shot at anything. It's a competitive job market. Everything's competitive. If you're not exceptional in some way, and the only way that I could see about being exceptional early on, because I don't think I didn't have a sense of, you're really talented in this, or, this comes easier to you than others. I mean, you have a sense of it, but that's not a driving force behind your motivation. What you can control is your effort and your energy, and your sense of responsibility for your own level of work. And if you meet that, then you can go places. And Game Day was nothing, by the way. It had been around for a couple of years. I didn't technically start it. It was on the air as a half-hour show in the mornings on Saturday, leading into like Ivy League games. No disrespect to Ivy League, but they were not heavily watched, and the show was watched by no one, and no one wanted that gig. Like the guy who had the show right before I did was basically a baseball announcer by trade, and his wife gave birth. He missed 1 week. I jumped in '89. They thought I did okay.
Wally Pipp.
Yeah. Well,
You're the Wally Pipp.
Next year I hosted it, but not because I muscled him out. He didn't want to. I mean, it wasn't a gig anybody wanted, Marty. And so we, for a few years, were just in the studio trying to find that audience for Game Day, and then convinced them to take it on the road for the first time in 1993 at a 1-2 college game at Notre Dame, when Florida State came in there, and sort of realized that was the aha moment. That was, wow, this is a real opportunity. This is different. And we knew it would be, if we get to a campus and execute the show, even though we had no clue what we were doing, that could lead to bigger things. And it did. And next year, more and more on the road, then became exclusively a show on the road on campuses, and would draw 10, 15, 20,000 people as they tried to outdo the previous campus. And it was great momentum. It was very fun. You get very few chances in life to build anything brick by brick. You know what that's like. You start out with nothing, you hang out a shingle, and you build it, and you build it. And it was a collaborative thing. There was a small core of people that were there in the first years that kept on, Lee Corso and others. But for the large part, There were some great producers. There were some great behind the scenes people. They kind of came and went because it wasn't a prime gig. And you do well and they move you to something else. And I only did game day because I trusted my gut and stuck with that high school show you talked about when they wanted to move me off to something else. And I did it for 2 years, and they came to me and said, this guy's young and single. Obviously, he's going to want to leave rural Connecticut and go to LA and be the LA bureau guy for SportsCenter, which they had not had before. Cover the Lakers, cover the Dodgers and USC. And something in me said, don't do that. That doesn't feel right, to go be a reporter at the other side of the continent from the network and go out and
the mothership.
And shove a microphone in an athlete's face and try to get some time with them after a game and then do a feature on, game 2 of the World Series. It sounds sexy, but it just didn't feel right. And I would say, I'll just keep doing the high school show. I'll do it another year. They were shocked. I mean, it's a risky thing.
Of course.
When you tell an employer that's got you in mind for something, no, I don't want to do that. And you're 25 and you've been there for 2 years and you're very expendable. It is a risk. I didn't even fully appreciate that at the time. Later, I saw, well, that's kind of ballsy because they could have said, kid, I don't care what you want to do. We want you there. Game day never would have happened. College football never would have happened. If I had taken that job, I'm not there to do the fill-in. I'm not there to take over doing features on game day before I hosted it. And I'm sure not there to build it. And then probably would not have gotten into the college football booth. Maybe, but probably not.
But that foundation of that decision was rooted in following your heart, following your gut. And
I'm very grateful for that. Yeah. Very, very grateful for that. That is what I tell people. Well-intentioned people who love you, who might know more about the world than you do, will give you advice. Doesn't mean they're right.
That's right.
It doesn't mean that they know what's right for you better than you do. And I trusted my gut a couple of different times going to ESPN when people tell me, don't go to that. ESPN. It's a 7-year-old cable network. It's not mainstream. You're doing a high school show on tape. It's not even live TV. And advisors and professors and people who were helping me in my career at that time said, don't do that.
But it felt good.
But it felt right.
Yeah,
it just felt right. It felt fun. Yeah. Honestly, I can't tell you that I had any kind of sense ESPN was going to be the worldwide leader in anything, or it was going to lead to game day or live TV or Wimbledon. I had no clue, no plan. It just felt more fun. And honestly, I tell kids that, it's okay to make choices about what, by fun, I mean inspiring, right? Challenging, and not easy fun, challenging, inspiring fun.
Yeah.
And if you make choices based on that and not based on money or eyeballs or ratings, you're just so much better served in this business. I think in a lot of businesses, so many, you're around young people more than I am. Fame,
fortune,
followers, views, likes, money. I got to make this money by X years, this age. I had no idea what people got paid in this business. None.
Right.
I just wasn't about money, and it still never is. Yeah. I still don't make decisions. I made no decisions in my career primarily on a financial basis, and I feel lucky that I've been able to do that. In recent years, it hasn't been the major factor at all. It's okay. Is it continuing to be challenging and inspiring? Is there still something fresh and new out there about this gig that keeps me going? Because now you get to the point where you don't need to work anymore, but you still love to, as long as those conditions are met, right?
Right. And you've been doing that, decade after decade. You talked about some real important themes. You talked about, for a young person, just show up. Just show up, right?
On time. On time and prepared.
And prepared.
You know they say, like, great actors have given advice, know your lines, and they kind of laugh. And no. Show up on time and know your lines. It's that basic at the beginning.
That's right.
But it's not done very often.
My kids ask me, Dad, are you not scared? Of course I'm scared. But the fear of fucking up in front of camera forces me to prepare a lot.
My dad was kind of a perfectionist. He was a theater director. He got wound up. He was a professor of theater arts, teaching graduate students how to be directors, and then directed theater professionally. My mom was a choreographer. So they were around that. And, you were expected to get it right. Yeah. You rehearsed the shit out of it. You were expected to get it right when the lights went on or the curtain went up, right?
Yeah.
So that was in me. And I think I try to convey to kids, you know, just if you can get it right the first time and not waste your time and other people's time, man, you are just so ahead of the pack.
You know, sometimes the analogy to football helps a lot when I am mentoring young folks. I'm like, in football, everyone has an assignment. Every position has. If you do your assignment to the best of your ability, guess what? You actually might have a chance to win, right? And that is that new first job for you. That's, you know, when you're a newbie. Just do your job. Show up. Be memorable. Do great things. You know.
What happens when you try to do too much? The coaches scold you, right? Just do your job. Don't try to do too much. Well, I try to do too much. I mean, a lot of us get in there and you're eager to show what you know, and you want to show you belong, and you look like a little kid, but you're in a newsroom, so you want to show that you got some chops. And I got smacked down because, you know, I was a wise guy that thought he knew too much, and you don't even know what you don't know at that age. So I talk to kids about that too. You know, listen, you're going to have moments in your life that you're never going to forget. They're humbling. That where you are exposed a little bit because you think you know more than you know. You think you're better than you really are. And those moments are massive teaching moments. I got yelled at by an editor in a newsroom of a big city station in Denver. I talk about this because at the time it's like, oh my God, I just want to go back in the edit bay and slide the glass door closed and like hide. But you got to go back to work. And I never forgot that. I was a punk kid. He was a veteran at his job.
Me too.
And he was like, I've had enough of this kid shit. I don't care who's here. I'm going to yell. And you know what? He was 100% right. It was my bad. And I've always remembered that. And so, you know, all experience is growth, right? Even if you don't try to make it, you're going to grow in some way. But if you do seize the moment and realize, okay, this is a pretty intense, humiliating experience. It's a negative experience. So there's more opportunity for growth in that. So let's make the most of it. I mean, I didn't learn that lesson once, by the way. It happened repeatedly. But I was that way as a kid.
You got a bob and weave too.
I was always someone who was like, you know, kind of thought they knew more than they did. I probably still am in some respects, but I think you do get humbled and you learn over time to be secure in yourself, that you don't have to try to impress all the time.
Yeah, and cream always rises to the top, as they say, right? Because it does, you know. There's an old quote which your story reminded me of. You finally grow up when you're done knowing it all.
Exactly.
Because you realize you don't know shit.
Exactly. I like a lot of Eastern philosophy, and that's obviously one of the foundations of it.
And it's fascinating because, you know, you just keep showing up, and you kept showing up, and now you go from game day to, you know, the Saturday game of the week or Saturday night. You finish the game Saturday and you start prepping Sunday morning. I mean, there's no downtime. You're looking at film for the next game, looking at tape, learning the names of these rosters that are sometimes 100 players long. And
college football is challenging that way, as you know. Big rosters, a lot of people.
Rosters. I've seen that sheet in front of you and the little notes on every player and watching film. And I've even seen you do play-by-play with the sound off, right? Just to see, you know, getting your pace and your tempo. And tell me about that and that nerve-wracking, and because you're so authentic and keep it real for the audience.
There's a great quote about that. Laurence Olivier, the great actor, said, you have to have the humility to prepare, but then the ego to perform. So I think that applies well to this. You have to stay humble and realize that, you know, you're only as good as your last show. And if you don't remember what got you to a certain level and you slack on that, you have no right to expect that you're going to continue to perform at that level. So the ability to prepare, and I love it. So it's not a chore. I mean, I've learned to be more efficient. I don't start on Sundays anymore, man. I will take a day off. Game day was, you know, you're covering the whole sport. You know, it was a 7-day-a-week thing, and I think it can still be. But, you know, and then you have to have the self-belief and the ego, the healthy use of ego, to get out there and do it when the lights come on. Because I say this about preparation. Preparation equals confidence, but preparation doesn't equal excellence, because you can still screw it up on Saturday night, no matter how well you prepared. So you got to know yourself well and know what it takes to get the best out of yourself. Athletes live in this world. You can have great practices. If you suck when the ball's kicked off, nobody cares what you look like in the practice field. You're judged and paid by that. I mean, the coaches still care, but that's really what it's about. Yeah. You're preparing for that moment. You said nerve-wracking. There's a point at which when you do something long enough and you try hard enough to get better at it, it's no longer about mistake avoidance, which a lot of life is. Just don't screw it up, right? When you start to drive, don't hit something. Don't then you relax, and it's not about avoiding mistakes.
Your first job, don't piss anyone off.
Learning and doing better, and that's the way it is for this. Like every new thing that I've done, you certainly start back. Let's not screw this up. Yeah, I'm taking on horse racing, a particular culture in that sport, an entire vocabulary that's unique to it. I watch horses. I can read a form. I go to the track, but that's not announcing it, right?
That's right.
So then you have to be very humble and step back and bring genuine enthusiasm, but no false authority. And so you do worry about making a mistake there. You worry about not exposing yourself as someone who's not in horse racing 365, which my colleagues are. But then you get to a certain point in anything where you just trust yourself and you go for the highest level of performance you can get, and you're not worried about screwing up. And I don't show up in the booth nervous, really. You excitement and nerves are the same thing, as you know. You try to teach young people. You're nervous? No, you're excited. It's the same chemicals in your body. It's the same feeling. Just frame it like you're excited for this game, not you're nervous about it, right?
And if you're nervous, or better yet, if you're not nervous, you should be worried.
Right. I don't call it nerves. I mean, sometimes you'll do these things in your mind. You'll like almost deliberately under-prepare in some way for this game, just to leave yourself that little bit of juice that, you feel like a little bit of a jolt, because it's still a tightrope when you're out there. Again, it doesn't matter how well you know the roster. If you call it wrong because you see 86, but it's 88 who makes the catch, those are the kind of mistakes that really bother me. Like player identification, the basics, saying third down when it's fourth down. I mean, you just got to stay so locked in. Yeah. And so, but you don't find that sweet spot, that zone, by trying to. You just got it's called relaxed intensity for me. That's how I describe it.
Sure.
The intensity to be focused, but you can't be nervous. You have to let it go. You have to let it go.
Let it come towards you too.
And tennis and football, if you care about this, is very different to do. Football is a see it, say it. So you're trusting your instincts in the moment. You're ad-libbing the entire thing as it's happening, knowing when to speak, when not to speak, what verb to use when a guy goes through a hole and takes off. Just the stuff that you don't even think that comes to you. Tennis is very different. You watch a point unfold. If there's any length to the point, and a match has a rhythm like that, then you're thinking of 3 or 4 things you would say if the point ended right now. But it didn't end. It continues. So forget that. Now you continue to watch it. You're kind of editing in your head constantly. And then you might end up saying nothing. Wow, what a shot. Crowd's going crazy. That's all you need to say. But it's what you don't say, what you edit out in that gap between brain and mouth, which is so important to have in life, but especially in this business. You got to have a gap there.
Some kind of filter.
You talk about impulse response. Drives me crazy when someone just responds to every impulse by speaking.
Exactly.
Just
a little bit more.
Give it some space. Just give it some space between. And I think that's the key. And so they're very different sports to do.
Yeah. I do wish on any young person in media or really any profession, that juice, man, I know that juice. I remember, when I was made my debut with you and Kirk on ESPN, leading up to the start of the game, from early in the day, the production meeting, talking about what we're going to talk about, who's the sponsors, blah, 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 and the pace and the tempo and the juice. That was like just before a game in the locker room. Yeah. It was like, and that juice, that's addictive, man. That juice is addictive.
Because it's collaborative. That's what's so cool. I mean, TV productions involve as many people as are on a football team. It's a massive number of people. And when you work with a group of people who all hold themselves to a high standard, they've all paid their dues to be there, as the ones on our crew have. It's not their first year in the business. So they've paid their dues. They want to be great. They want to be a part of something that's great. And that's so cool. I mean, in the EA Sports video game, I see a small piece of it. But when you're involved in something like that, where they care so much about what you sound like on the mic, what the acoustics are in the room, it's incredibly detail-oriented. And you see this game come out, you go, oh my God. Like the guy who designed the stadium, the women and men who designed the soundscape of it, the fight songs and the chants and the Seven Nation Army playing in the crowd. I mean, the details, they took amazing pride in it. And that's why the product is so incredible. And just to be a part of that, that's where I think the juice comes from. You know, you just want to do your part because you're surrounded by so many other people who care. And when you don't have that, and that exists in TV, just like it exists in sports.
Yeah.
Teams without that culture, this
right.
guy's thinking about himself. He's slacking off. He's not bought in completely to the culture.
He's playing for the back of the jersey, not for the front of the jersey.
He's looking at the door, waiting to get out.
right.
That happens in life. It's going to happen. Any job you take, any company you're in, you're going to have situations like that. I'm just thankful that at this point, I'm not involved in any of those because I have the ability to select. I mean, you get to a certain stage where these big broadcasts, everybody cares and buys in.
The whole video game thing, I just love that. I think I told you a story. You and I had a call, and you were on speaker, and moments later, minutes later, I hear you in my other room, and I'm like, fuck, I left him on speaker. And I'm running out, my kids are playing Xbox, you know, and like, oh, it's Chris on Xbox. I get it now.
We're doing that now for the next version of the game. And so you talk about a bizarre thing to be sitting there in March and in this little office with these padded panels around you, screaming into a mic, screaming touchdown calls or big play calls into a mic in an empty room, trying to simulate what you know about in the booth and that energy in a stadium. It's a very artificial thing to do, but you know, from experience, I know that if you don't overdo it in that environment, it will never sound right when the kids are playing. And if you're a gamer and you score a 75-yard touchdown on the first play of the game against your arch rival, and I've called games where that's happened. So I try to get the game call, the video game call, to match what the real game was. And it's hard. And I failed, and I had to redo it because that's not even close to what I would be doing.
How cool is it? The kids actually have to attain a certain level to get your voice.
Yeah.
They don't just get your voice.
I don't know about that. You can always pick your commentators. Inside tip, you can pick whoever you want, but the default.
There's a cheat code out there.
There's a cheat code. Yes.
That's fantastic. And let's talk a little bit about tennis, because you said it's a different type of juice. Yeah. You love the game.
I do.
And you love the mental part of the game. Obviously, the beauty of, you know, the Rafas and Federer. I mean, iconic players for how they played the game, how they carried themselves. And talk a little bit about tennis, because you love calling tennis. You just, right?
Tennis I played as a kid, not at a very high level. My tennis skills did not get me this job, but I do love the sport. I fell in love with it in the early 70s. Jimmy Connors comes along, then later McEnroe, Chrissy Everett on the women's side. I was enamored with her. I get to work with her now. It's something that's pretty crazy, full circle. So I was a tennis fan at least as early as I was a football fan. And so I come to it as authentically as I do football. And we got the rights for Wimbledon in 2003 and started doing all these Grand Slams. I mean, it's been a tremendous 23, 24-year run of doing these Grand Slams. So grateful to have the rights to do them. For a time, we had all four. But this era, you brought up some of the names. I mean, just think about the difference between watching the career arc of someone like Serena, Rafa, Roger, Novak, when they come on the scene and they're doing big things at 18, 19, then you get to see them through their peak years dominate. Then you get to see them when they're trying to manage the decline. Then you see them at the end, they're trying to hang on and summon that greatness to do one more big thing. That describes the arc of all four of those players I mentioned. And to get to be a part of that is awesome. And to get to know them. College, you know, you see players at a certain stage of their development, their life, and then they're gone. And then it's the next.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'll cheer for them on Sundays, but there's a whole new group of guys that I have to watch on Saturdays who get to know. And the cycle is endless. Tennis was pretty cool, man, because not just the all-time greats.
You were documenting it for years.
Yeah, and it's not just the all-time greats we're talking about. It's just it's the respect I have for the rank and file individual sport. You can't tap out. There's no tag team partner, right?
You.
It's just you out there
on an island.
And for a while, there was no coaching allowed, so you were just out there on your own. Self-reliance against something I really value, toughness, managing the inner voice, which drives tennis players crazy. But I'm watching people out there like, oh my God, are they fighting themselves? And they're losing. They're losing the battle inside their own mind. And they're
you're thinking the voice is getting very loud.
And it's fascinating in tennis because you see who can turn the page, who can make a terrible shot in a big moment and on to the next thing.
Turn that page.
And you don't have teammates around you to huddle up and give you encouragement. And so tennis fascinates me, the mental and the physical component. 5-hour and 53-minute match that I called, Djokovic and Nadal at the Australian Open final, along with Patrick McEnroe, 5 hours and 53 minutes of match play. So you're on the air for 7 hours. It requires a level of focus and energy that's unlike anything else you can do, really, in sports. And I've called plenty of matches that go beyond 4 hours. So
that's self-motivation.
That's a cool challenge, but it's also it takes years to build to that. Frankly, I mean, you can't just arrive ready for that. It takes reps to get ready for that moment.
There are motivational books based on the mentality of a tennis player. I mean, that inner drive, that self-motivation. You are out there on an island and you're about to fail, and and it's in front of everyone, and you got to turn that page. You got to dig deep, and it's such a moniker for life about digging deep, that resiliency you see, and you sometimes are documenting them fail very publicly or rise.
It's incredible to watch that because you're right. You're alone out there on that stage, and we all remember mental meltdowns out there, and it's compelling in a way. But
Johnny Mac,
well, Johnny Mac managed his meltdowns really well. Like he could scream, and I love working with John. John's a unique human. He sees things through a lens that is uniquely his, and I've learned so much from him. Watching players battle that, and the ones who can overcome that. There's so many life lessons in that stuff. Yeah. Not just the result of it, but going into it. Like, here's a big break point. It's 4-all in the final set. I've had very few break opportunities. Now I have one. I got to make a great return. I got to win this point. If I don't, I may never see one again. That's a terrible mindset to have, right? As you know. How do you flush that out? It's human nature. How do you, in your free throw line, not choke? Field goal kicker, quarterback. I'm just in awe of people who are able to get in that mental state and not attach the result of something to how they perform. If you can detach from that, Djokovic does a phenomenal job at that. He plays big points better than anybody ever has, I think. Don't worry about what might happen if you don't do everything right. Remove that thinking process.
Right. We talk about that in simple advice. Just focus on what you can control. Not those outside forces.
It takes years to learn to do that in life, though, man. So I don't expect a young tennis player or a young college football player.
It's a work in progress. It's the concept of mental surrender. There's also, you can talk about that when a career is winding down. They have to surrender to, okay, it's time to hang it up, time to go. You know, I know that you talk about Rafa being one of the greatest of all time, and he is, no question about it. But I know from a medical standpoint, the resilience. You know, few people know this, it's well documented, but he had a congenital issue that he was born with, a bone in his foot. Was born with less blood supply than the bone needs. And for his entire career, they did multiple procedures to help save that bone and get more blood to that bone. Basically, he fractured it almost every year, a little bit. And at some point, the pain he could no longer explode, be that player, because the speed, in ground strokes was just, second to none.
He uses the word suffer a lot in a way that suffer means to dig so deep, to ask so much of yourself, which he had to do time and again. Other players do too, but the way he played, the physical style demanded that, right? And so I've I've learned so much from him. He's the favorite athlete that I've ever covered in any sport, Rafa. We've talked about Rafa.
Yeah, sure.
Our shared admiration for him because he brings the humility to it, the work ethic, and the willingness to suffer. And I think that when he finally had to step away, I went to see his last match at in Rome at the Italian Open, and there's a poignance to it. There's a bittersweet, there's a sadness to it. We don't want to see these players step away. We want them to go on forever. You know, how they try to, as we said, squeeze out every last bit of ability. Brady's done it. LeBron's doing it right now. Chris Paul's doing it. People who are 40 years old and they played 20 years plus at an elite level. Insane. And what I try to get people to understand is you can never really step into their world or fully know, but they show you glimpses. So the commitment that it continues to take. I'm big on recovery. You know, everybody talks about how LeBron plays at 40. If people saw what he did off the court,
at the moment the game ends,
what Djokovic does,
the recovery
all these toys that are high tech, but all the patience, all the humility that it takes to be a great and know that you still got to go stretch. You still have to warm up. You still have to shoot 10,000 shots. It's Curry. You think it's unbelievable what Steph does. People have no idea the commitment that they make away from it.
That's right.
And so that's where I think we're talking about now all-time greats across the entire sports landscape. That's the piece, right? The relentlessness, at the ability to just do it at an age where you're not supposed to be able to do it. And sometimes, well, LeBron's an alien. Well, yeah, he's super, super gifted, but he would tell you that a lot of it is what he's done. It's not all genetics. Yeah. You can take great genetics and then you can squeeze the most out of that and get to that level if you do what he's done and Novak's done and Brady did in different ways. But few are willing to make that commitment.
Now we get to give gifts out to our guests.
No problem with gifts, Marty.
So this is what's known as Appos Health. I know what it looks like to you, but it's actually a foot-worn medical device. And what it does, it helps engage the muscles around the knee, around the back, that basically have shut down over the years due to chronic pain and inflammation. Listen, the body doesn't like to engage muscles in a swollen environment. So there's a custom device that measures your stride length, your gait, whole gait analysis. So when the heel hits the ground, the right muscles engage. And guess what? 150,000 people have worn these, and it's proven FDA cleared, and you get a custom pair. I know we had some left knee issues and occasional some back issues. And
right knee issues too.
But this is Appos Health.
Wow.
And you get your own free pair.
I've heard of this. I've never held one. The first thing is they look funky. They make you taller too, so that's an added benefit.
Are you heightening?
No, this is amazing. I love products that embrace new ideas in health, so I can't wait to try these.
And you only have to wear them up to an hour a day. You don't even train on them. All you do is walk around in them and stand around in them. I've used them. I believe in them. And guess what? They're game changing. You get your own pair. We're going to set you up, custom made for you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
You're welcome, man. Let's talk about suffering in your personal health and wellness journey.
Oh.
This man is a beast, in the gym. And he suffers from time to time because of the commitment he has in the gym. And you run your workouts not unlike a Division I football team, and you love it, great passion. You've paid the price a little bit.
You know about the price.
I know.
No, people like you that are at the pinnacle of physical therapy and great surgeons and trainers changed my life. I mean, I owe so much to smart people in that area because we all push ourselves and we all stumble into things with enthusiasm but not intelligence. I mean, that's the world, and I worked out with great enthusiasm, not much smarts as a kid. Bro lifting, overworking, overtraining.
Curlies for the girlies.
Well, yeah, but just like we're improper form on benching or deadlifts, you're pushing a lot of weight, but doing damage to your body you don't even understand. And so I do talk about that. I'm 62. I'm inspired by so many people who are older than me or my age or younger, what they do, and there's 1,000 people on Instagram that I look at and go, wow, I learned something different about this stretch or this hip mobility exercise, or there's so much, it's infinite, right? You can have 10 lifetimes and not everything there is to know about the body and how it moves and how it functions. So you do pay a price, and I am in pain and too often, and I've had my share of surgeries. But the surgeries have been so instructive for me. If you view it as something that's happening to you, oh shit, I'm a victim. and not something happening for you,
Yeah.
your mindset's different.
That's a
Some of
great
these surgeries, I mean, it's hard to do when nobody wants a setback. Nobody wants to get a scalpel in you and then rehab for 6 months. But it forces you to view things differently, to reset, to be humble, and hopefully to learn and grow from it. So I got back stronger upper body strength after each of the 2 surgeries I had. This sounds worse than it is, but the pec tendon ripped off the bone, reattached either side
Twice.
within a year and a half. I was that dumb that I kept doing the same things after the first one and entered the other one. But they're
I just try to warn them.
I know, but I was just told it was like too late at that point. There has been so much wear and tear when I'm talking about with lifting forever, lifting too much. But each time I got back, and I don't talk about like weight room numbers, but I got stronger in pressing after the first injury. Yeah. Obviously, huge setback, rehab again, but it goes easier. Your body remembers how to recover from these things. So there's
a muscle
upside,
memory.
The upside of repeated injuries is that your body gets better at it, right?
That's right. There's a muscle memory. There's also an injury memory. That's
I got too much of an injury memory. But to get back stronger the second time. But stem cells are being injected by the billions into the shoulder as an alternative to shoulder replacement. Yeah. So there's all kinds of things, if you're lucky enough to have the access to them, that you can do. And I think that going forward, medicine is exploding, and all kinds of treatments and methods where they're still learning. But I'm into that world now. You live down here in South Florida, and everybody's got an idea. Do this IV drip.
And everyone's got a guy.
I got a guy. Get in this chamber. Do this. Take this supplement. But because there's such a massive emphasis on longevity.
That's right.
And I'm not obsessed with it, but I do attach fitness and longevity. Yeah. So even if it's just getting up and walking 10,000 steps as opposed to going in the gym and lifting, I value that highly. So
I mean, as a health professional, I am just obsessed and extremely motivated and excited for the concept of using science to at least keep Father Time at bay, because he wins every time. But you can bob and weave a little bit with science, and that's what you're doing.
You know what I say? Decline is inevitable, but not today, and not tomorrow. And if you keep that mentality,
that's right.
you can decline on your own terms. Maybe we're fooling ourselves, but I like to think that I can control some of the terms of the inevitable decline.
You know what I love about the concept? You love your health and wellness journey. It is definitely a spiritual journey at times. It's a mind-body connection. Without question, that's had to give you some balance with the intensity and demands of in the booth work.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're connected. So if I can show up healthy and energized, we both share a fascination and a passion for brain health, which if you don't, ask yourself why you don't care about your brain health, because especially in my stage where you got to have the fastball every Saturday night and every day at Wimbledon.
That's right.
So what can I do? How do you stay sharper? I explore all kinds of things, from breathing techniques to supplements, and I take a long list of them. But brain health is enormously important to everybody. When you have a grandmother who had Alzheimer's, but it wasn't even labeled that back then. She just had a bad memory. Grandma kept telling the same stories. This is the woman who helped put me on this path that I loved as much as anybody. Yeah. And I saw what happened to her. My mom has Alzheimer's, and she passed from that. And so, you better take it seriously. And I do. And I think they're tied together. And fortunately now there's so many other opportunities and tools to things, if you're open-minded, to sample and see what works for you and keep the decline at bay.
One of the things I've never expected, but me embarking on this concept of game recognizes game, and the conversations, the stories, it is brain health for me, man. It's the juice. Having these conversations with great friends and people I respect, I admire. I mean, people ask me, why are you doing this, right? It's simple. For me to do what I have done for 3 decades, I can't believe I just said that, but yes, I've essentially helped people overcome. Physical, mental.
Sure.
But to be able to do that for that long, I've had to be inspired. And listening to you and the grandmother with the transistor radio, that just gets me. You have no idea, because I see it. My love of music comes from my mother blasting every Saturday morning while she's cleaning the house. She's blasting her music. And my love of music comes from her.
What music is she playing?
Well, she's playing her Latino music and Latin music.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm like, when I was listening
Tito
to my
Puente's
music,
playing in the household.
all that stuff. And, Colombian house was cumbia, right? Here in Little Havana here, and Little Colombia here too. But it was also those passions and and I was able to. Music is a passion of mine as well, as you know. But it's a wonderful journey to now talk about those inspirations, talk about those stories, and I have to thank you for putting me on this media ride. You know, that I tell everyone, and it's full disclosure, it's well documented. This man here,
no.
Basically
Game recognizes game. You had passion and knowledge. When you have passion and knowledge about a topic, you can talk.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew you were going to succeed.
And you said, you know, I like the way you explain things. We could use you in a booth. And, you know, years later, like, it all worked out.
It's got to get you back. I got to convince people that what you do is important because...
ESPN, are you hearing that? We got to get me back.
How do we have a rules guy explain what holding is? We don't have a medical guy explain what an ACL is.
Right.
Injuries are as big a part of sports as anything now, but that's a whole other conversation. I'm still working on that.
All right, here we go. We're going to do one of my favorite segments now. Okay, it's called Moving the Chain.
I thought you were going to say rapid fire or one-word answers. I'm not very good. I'm not very good at one-word answers, but I'll try.
That's this question.
Okay.
Moving the Chains is brought to us by our sponsor, NOBULL. It's a footwear company designed to just help you achieve your goals with both physical strength, mental strength, and also emotional strength. And the concept of moving the chains, as you know, it's a little moniker for life. You know, a first down in football is a small win. You have enough small wins, you're having a pretty good day.
Yeah.
Right? And what for you is your daily non-negotiable to move your chains forward, to just start the momentum?
It's taken a long time to get there, Marty, because I was not really a routine person. I didn't like the idea of repeated patterns of behavior, sticking to something that rigid. It wasn't in my nature, but I figured out that a morning routine was valuable because it prioritized certain things. You have a checklist in your head, things I want to do. First thing, hydrate. Hydrate and caffeinate, and eat some food and take my supplements and stretch. Get the body moving. You know what it's like, man. Sometimes you get out of bed and it doesn't matter how active or how great you felt yesterday, whoop, you feel 90.
That's right.
When your feet hit the floor. So it's become non-negotiable. First of all, down here in Miami, I'm able to get outside no matter what time of year we're at. So open the doors, fresh air, hopefully sunshine, as quick as possible while I'm drinking water and coffee. And then regulating the caffeine. I just do 1 cup of green tea, 2 cups of coffee. I have it in my head, that's enough, and it is. And then just trying to eat clean. I kind of fast in the morning, but I got to move. I got to get up. I got to get going. I'm terrible. I'm a wreck when I'm sedentary all the time. I have to be up, active, and moving.
Yeah.
And Jennifer thinks I'm obsessed with it. A little demented about it, but it just works for me.
Well, you talked about,
that's not negotiable.
And you just show up.
Yeah,
and you just show up. All right, next 2 minutes on the clock. Favorite song?
Ooh, I'm Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd.
Excellent.
Played it last night twice. The live version and the studio as I walked around late at night, my nocturnal walk, which is another topic. But I played the guitar solo for me.
I love it. First song on your favorite playlist?
Ooh, I have a very hard and angry workout playlist. I don't know if you know this.
If you look at mine, you think I'm schizophrenic.
Not just Metallica, not just Rage Against the Machine. It might be Bulls on Parade, Live by Rage Against the Machine. It might be a song called NWO by Ministry. But I mean, these are songs that you're not supposed to listen to when you're 60 because you're not supposed to be that angry. But it just gets me going, and so that would be one playlist. But I have a crazy playlist: Brazilian jazz, a lot of Latin music, everything from hip hop to classic rock to the songs that I played as a college DJ, which would be like early REM, Cars, U2, Depeche Mode, Duran Duran.
Brings you back.
All that kind of stuff. So I listen to a huge, wide variety of music.
Best athlete you've ever seen in any sport, live?
Well, for me, it's Nadal because it encompasses the mental and the spiritual part of it, not just athletic ability. He was not the most gifted guy. But so if you mean athletically gifted, there's different meanings for that.
Sure, your perception of men.
Rafa, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But resilience, toughness, mental strength, humility.
That overarching career.
All that it takes would be number one. But obviously there's been so many, we talked about Lance, Jordan, others, but
Sure. Yeah, for me, it's always Jordan. But most recently, you called it out during the Alabama-Georgia game. Ryan Williams, the wide receiver who was 17 years old, dismantling the Georgia defense at 17 years old. Yes, I said 17.
But that's sports, man.
Yeah.
All these all-time greats, and here comes the next wave. And
That's
they're
right.
hungrier, and if we're being honest, they could be better.
Next segment, something we call Thoughts from 30,000 Feet. Just a little bit deeper questions, just to make you think a little bit. But we don't have that much time, so it doesn't get too deep.
I like going.
There we go, let's go. If you had the privilege of sitting with your 18-year-old self, what are you telling him?
Believe in yourself. Know it's going to be harder than you think. Know that you don't know what you don't know. Don't expect a linear path in life. Don't think you can sit here in that moment at 18 and predict anything that's going to happen. Okay? Because, now this is deep, control is an illusion, right? We're told we all want to control things. It's so little in life we can control. Very few things. Effort, your energy, your attitude, doing the right thing, treating people well. Things that you can control, you should. People don't even like to use the word control sometimes because control is not really an Eastern philosophy word, but the choices. The thing that you have choices about, that you can execute a choice about how you show up each day, prepared, with a good attitude. I think that's what defines your life as you get thrown in this crazy nonlinear path. So, I tell that kid, you have no idea what's ahead. You don't know what you don't know, but just be open and be humble and learn from smart people. And know that learning and growing and evolving is a process that continues to your last day, if you're lucky to have that mindset. I got a lot to learn. I want to get better at what I do. I want to get better at a lot of things. So if you value continued growth and improvement, to me, that is the meaning of life. Okay, that if you want to get deep, life means continuing to always be curious about things and be open to learning, growing, and experiencing what's out there. And then,
Yeah, some of the greatest leaders have always said, just be curious. Last question is something I know is dear to you. Is you lost your dad at 16 years old. We didn't get a chance to talk too much. You found tapes in his struggle with cancer. But as I listened to your career, I listened about your preparation, your discipline, and he was in drama. He was a creative, and they seek out perfection, right? And right. What's interesting is though, you seek out improvement, always improving.
Yeah.
But in some ways, you got to believe your dad would have been proud because you are creative also, man.
Oh, thanks. I'd like to think so. Yeah. It is tough when you lose a parent young. There is the passing that rocks your world. He had cancer, lung cancer, was a smoker, and his decline over 3 years was really brutal. The end is tough, but it's that process of decline that you see, and your whole family goes through it. I have a lot of sympathy for families of cancer sufferers or any disease because they live it with them. And I did as a kid. So you lose part of your childhood, but you learn lessons. You try to gain whatever you can from an awful experience. My dad would have been proud, I think. But what I started to say was you miss the experience later in life of being able to share things that you've learned, different stages of your development with your parent. And not just have them see you do it, but learn from them and exchange ideas. I'll give you the 30-second version. I did find tapes of my father recorded while he was a cancer patient in his late 40s. Okay, I didn't listen to them till I was in my late 50s. They were in my mom's basement on cassettes. I played them. It was an out-of-body experience. I will do something with them at some point, some kind of content project, but it's surreal to hear your dad's voice that you barely remember, and it sounds so different than what's in your mind. Very theatrical. He spoke in a way I don't speak. Would we have been friends? Because he was very different. But and he was learning these lessons. But how everything is precious, we don't realize it until your time is taken away from you. A simple lunch with friends, a walk outside in the park. And he was recording on these tapes, these epiphanies, because he had worked so hard and been on the grind for a long time. And I'm like, no kidding, Dad. It's your dad saying these things, and you're 10 years older than he was when he said them. Imagine that, okay? And you're thinking, yeah, that's basic. I learned that a long time ago, because when you see that time is precious and we're guaranteed nothing, you have a different mindset. You don't put things off. And you try to, I mean, it took me a while, but you try to be present and appreciate the moment.
Yeah.
Because that's all there is, right? But to hear him say these things in this time capsule was wild.
To hear you hearing his voice is so moving to me.
Yeah.
Because you are known for your voice, and now you're hearing your dad's voice. God bless him.
But it was moving, but it was also surreal in a way. Like, I did wonder, like, it's questions you never expect to ask, because you take it for granted. But God, would we have hung out? would I have hung out with my dad if somehow because we were very different people.
Yeah.
And I think we saw things differently. And you know, I try never to have a temper, because I saw what his temper was like. And I try not to chase perfection, because I think that, you know, we eat ourselves up. Yeah. And I think that
no road to happiness. Road. Yeah.
Where does disease come from? And sometimes, maybe it comes from
anger,
stress, and anger, and all those kinds of things. And so I try to be free of that stuff. But I do miss the fact that that I didn't have a relationship with him from age 16.
You know, I've had the honor of recognizing you, and we love on this show the concept of paying it forward and recognizing others that might inspire you. And this is your moment to think about someone that you think would be a great guest, and maybe has inspired you. Maybe it's an athlete, maybe it's someone in media, but anyone you could think of?
Oh God, I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, you're just inspired by so many people. I
Sure.
mean, I can give you. I'll send you a list.
So listen, we'll say.
By the way, now I'm trying to book guests for you. Wait, is this what you're asking me to do?
Well, the future guest, but it's also an opportunity. We think it is not. Yeah, they might be a future guest, and we hope they will be. But it's about, man, that guy inspired me, or she inspired me, and we think that's going to.
I'll work on Rafa. Is that good enough for you?
Yeah, make that intro. Make that intro.
Man, I'll try to make that happen. I mean, I was in Mallorca visiting him.
This is a great journey, man. I'm so glad you sat down with me. This is fun, honored, privileged, and I've learned so much from you. And you were
right back at you, man. You're a part of this journey too, later in life and in my physical recovery. So
you're one of the greatest, man. You're one of the greatest of all time.
Stop.
Thanks, pal. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Really enjoyed it. Had a blast.
That was fun, man.
Yeah.